everyone, it's Christy Reuling of Christy Gets Crafty, and I am thrilled to be guest designing with my favorite things. Today I'm going to show you how to create a spotlight shaker scene using the Dashing Deer and Berry Big Adventure stamp sets. I've stamped out all my images in MFT's Black Licorice Hybrid ink because I'm going to be coloring with Copic markers. Beginning with my deer, I'm using the E21 to just outline the areas that I want to keep light on his body, especially on his belly and on the inside of his legs, and then around his face and his ears. And then I'm going to take the E000 and just blend that out so it's nice and soft. For the rest of his body, I'll be using E15, E17, and E19. And I'm just working darkest to lightest, so I started with that E19, just outlining the shadows on the outer edge of his body. And then I'm blending out with the E17 towards the center. And then I'm going to fill in almost all that remains with the E15. It was at this point that I realized that I was going to need one more shade to create a transition between the dark and light on his belly. So I did pull in the E13 to just finish everything off. And that worked very nicely. And I just blended everything out one more time with that E000 to make sure there was no harsh lines. The second deer was colored exactly the same, so I went ahead and cut that out of the videos just to save time. And now moving on to my birds, and again I'll be coloring them identically, so I'll just be showing one. I'm using BG10, BG11, BG13, and BG15. And I want to keep the highlight on their face, so the darkest edge is going to be towards the back of their body. For the bunny, I'm using W00, W1, W3, and W5. I like to use warm grays on animals and cool grays on like inanimate objects like tires and watering cans and anything that would be made of metal or anything like that. I want my bunny to still look white but have some dimension, so I'm using the dark colors sparingly just in the shadowed areas and saving the majority of his body for the lighter colors, the W00 and the W1. I'll use R20 to add a little pink to the inside of the ears of both the deer and the bunny. And I'll color all the scarves, hats, and berries on the greenery with my favorite red combo, which is R29, R39, and R59. For the leaves on the greenery, I'm using YG00, YG03, and YG05. Before I spin my paper around, I'm going to take a white gel pen and add some spots to the deer's hindquarters and also color in the pom-poms on all the hats. And that will give it time to dry while I color in my trees. For those, I'm using G21, G24, and G28. And I'm starting with the G28 as my darkest, and I'm shading on the left side, leaving the right side for the highlight. And for the other tree, I'm doing the exact same thing, except I'm adding a little flick of that darker color almost all the way across, just to create a little bit of separation between the layers. For the trunks, I'm using E25, E27, and E29, just keeping the dark up under the tree where it would cast the most shadow. And that finishes up our coloring, so I'll just die cut these with the matching dies. I've die cut a white cardstock panel using the second largest in the A2 stitch rectangle stacks, and then I'm going to take the new Drifts and Hills stencil and some tumbled glass distress ink, and I'm going to create some snowdrifts on my card front. The great thing about this stencil is that there are 4 different drift designs, one on each edge, and you can also flip it upside down and then you'd have 4 more. So you would actually be able to create 8 unique snowdrifts with this one stencil. And by adding several snowdrifts, we're creating a lot of depth and making it seem as though the scene goes on farther than the eye can see. So I'm just adding a bit more of that tumbled glass to the edges to give it a really frosty look. And now we're going to take that snow globe die and just get it lined up, and we're going to create our spotlight shaker in the middle of our scene. I've die cut that out, but before I remove the post-it tape, I'm going to take a little liquid glue and add that to the back of the snow globe, and then press an additional white panel right over top. And then I can smooth that glue into place and pull off the die and remove the outer portion of our scene. I'm going to focus first on this mini scene that we're spotlighting within our shaker. So I'll add a couple of trees, and I just want to make sure that they're all contained within the edges of that die cut. I don't want anything to get cut off when we add our surrounding scene. And then I'll also add the little bunny that I colored. And now I can add my shaker material. I've got some 4 and 6 millimeter sparkling clear sequins, and then I've also got a bit of glitter. I've lined the front and back edge of my dome shaker pouch with some super strong tape that's 1/8 of an inch wide, and I've peeled off the backer sheets, and now I'm just going to set that down and pop the rest of our scene right over top of that. And then I'll flip that over and add a bit more liquid glue to the outside edges of that panel, and then I can line that up right over top of our spotlight scene. Now everything is nice and contained in our little shaker, and we can go ahead with the rest of the card front. I'm going to flank our little shaker with some trees on either side. And I'll add my sentiment to the top right corner, and I heat embossed that on some hot fudge cardstock. I just love that sentiment. I've added a little dimensional foam tape to the back of both deer so that they can slightly overlap that dome shaker pouch, and that's really going to integrate our little shaker into the rest of the scene and make the whole card front look really cohesive. I wanted to fill in some of the white space at the bottom of the card with some greenery, and I also tucked in a bit behind the deer on the right. And then I'm just going to add a little more foam tape behind this little bird so it looks like he's holding that branch. And the other bird will also be holding some greenery as he flies through the air, just accenting that sentiment. So my card base is a piece of wild cherry cardstock scored and folded to a standard A2 size card, and I'm just going to take those 3 greenery stamps and I'm going to ink them up in some Versamark ink and just decorate the edges for a subtle tone-on-tone effect. I've added some more liquid glue to the back of my panel, and I can just go ahead and adhere that right over top, just making sure that it's lined up nice and straight, and then I can press that down into place. Since our card base is such a dark color, I'm going to add an insert for the inside so I can write my message, and I'm going to ink up the 2 birds and an additional sentiment with some MFT craft ink, and that reads, "Sweet winter wishes coming your way." And I'll just add a little bit more liquid glue and adhere that down to the inside of our card, leaving a nice red border all the way around. As a final embellishment, I'm going to take some glitter glue and add it here and there to the card. I like to just use it as an accent. So I've added it to the little birds' hats and the scars of the deer and to all the greenery, and then I'll also add it to the 2 trees that are outside of our shaker window, and that's just going to tie in really nicely to that sparkly shaker material that we added with the sequins and the glitter. And that is going to complete our card for today. I'm going to lift it up to the light so you can see all that beautiful sparkle, and give it a shake so you can see all that material in action. And I hope you enjoyed this spotlight shaker scene and that you learned something new that you might be able to implement into your own card making designs. Subscribe to MFT for more amazing card making videos just like these here on screen. Have a great day. Bye-bye.